When you are completing the square, what is the first step?
Get rid of the 2.
Oh. Get rid of the 2.
Yep.
Divide everything by 2.
To make sure that it's the x squared. Oh wait, these are notes. I don't have to write this down.
No.
I like to buy all
I like to buy a vowel.
How does this work?
Okay, well I'm left with x squared plus 1/2 x, or x over 2.
Yes.
You could write it as x over 2. Minus 5 over 2 equals 0.
Okay.
Are we there?
Yeah,
We're there.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
that makes sense.
We're rolling and going.
We're
All right,
rolling and
next
going.
Question, B.
We're rolling and going. Now, what's the next step?
Get rid of the 5 over 2. Or
Move it to the other side. Don't get rid of it. What did it do to you? It did nothing to you. You don't want to get rid of it.
Couldn't we just? Oh wait, never mind.
1/2 x plus blank equals 5 halves plus blank.
All right. My brain is working. We got
And here we go.
gears shifting. We're doing good. We're doing good.
Oh, yay, fractions.
No.
No.
Fractions
Yes.
are no.
No, I
Yeah,
quit. I
fractions.
quit. I quit.
Yes.
So is that 0.25 squared?
Oh, Tommy, not
It's
0.25.
1/4 squared.
Fractions are the
1/4.
We had a deal, Tommy.
What do you mean we had a deal?
Okay, plus 1/4, right?
Deals with the
Wait. Okay. Yes.
That's half of one.
Half of half.
1/2.
I'm not kidding. 1/4 times 1/4 is
No, no, no,
1/16.
That's what you Don't you just love fractions, Tom?
All right. Okay.
Okay,
This
we're
makes
good.
sense.
We're good.
Yep.
So x plus 1/4 squared equals, I want you to combine the right side. How would I do so? 41 over 16, how, 40, you mean 40 over 16?
40 over 16. Yep. Multiply that 2 by that 8.
Yeah.
Over 16 then.
Get that
By
whole fraction up there.
Oh, okay, you were a step ahead.
Wait. What? Oh. Never mind.
So 40 over 16 plus 1 over 16 becomes 41 over 16. Now what's my next step? Square root. X plus 1/4 equals the square root of 41 over 16. Could I simplify that at all?
I think
Yes.
square root of 40 over 4.
Yes.
Wait. What?
You can't.
Because you can 41 over square root of 41 over 16.
So when I say the square root of 41 over 16, it's like I'm saying the square root of 41 over the square root of 16. It's the same thing.
That makes sense.
Oh. Okay. All right.
And then that gets reduced.
Can we
Or
write
some-
that out as the answer on the test? Square root over square root, or does it need to be square root?
Just keep it as one big one.
Okay.
Boo.
Wait,
Then-
4 in the square root? No, outside.
And then it's plus or minus. Because you put a plus or minus out front.
Why does the 4 not have a square root? Couldn't you?
Because 16 square rooted is 4.
Could you reduce that?
So the square root goes away? No. The square root goes away. So x is equal to negative 1/4 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 4. And this is the answer.
Okay, that makes sense right now.
I have a
But
question.
I promise you there is a purpose for this.
Would there be a calculator for this section?
Nope. Okay, I want you to try with the person next to you. I want you to try B.
I have a question.
This is going to be really cool.
Oh, something's missing. The number.
Equals plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 4a squared.
Can we simplify anything under the...
You can. Could I simplify the denominator?
Yes.
And what is the square root of 4a squared?
2a.
2a. So I'm going to just keep the square root on the top, and then the denominator just becomes 2a.
So why do we put the square root to the b? The square root to the b? Like why is it
Because it's the entire numerator that's separated by a minus sign in between. So you can't just do it to one and not the other.
How did 4a squared?
So x is equal to negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. They both have a common denominator.
Oh my gosh.
Mind blown.
No, so then it's just negative b.
Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
It's over 2a?
All of it's over
Yes,
2a.
that's how the song goes.
What we just did, this is the proof. Remember proofs?
No. Yes.
Proof for the quadratic formula.
Or proofs.
Are we going into proof?
So essentially, this right here is this is the only proof that you'll need to know for
I
this.
told you you didn't forget all your proofs.
This is every single quadratic equation in the world. Letters A, B, and C. A represents the number in front of the x squared term. B represents the number in front of the x term. C represents the constant. You just proved why the quadratic works. It's completing the square. They're essentially the same thing, completing the square and quadratic formula. You're doing the same thing. One is just plugging numbers into the formula that you have memorized. One is doing the process of completing the square. But what you don't know is that you're doing the same thing. Crazy. So let's write out the quadratic formula nice and neat, okay? So
Write the entire song.
let's sing it while we say it. Ready? X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That was beautiful.
Wow.
We could make a choir out of our class.
So
Can we get
Harvey's in
credit
there.
for
Yeah, that's an extra credit. Extra credit.
We get fine arts credit for
We'll
making
sing
Yes.
in front of whole school.
Avery, I will
Yeah.
kick you out.
Start with the basics. So I want to rewrite it setting it equal to 0. So x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. Where my a is going to be what?
X.
1. B is negative 2. And C is negative 1. So I'm going to plug all the numbers into the formula. Make sure that you put parentheses with every number.
So can we get some calculators?
No.
No. Wait, how is?
If you could use your calculator, you
Never
would just
mind.
graph it and find the roots. You wouldn't even need to use the quadratic formula.
If you didn't tell us, none of us would have known that.
Yeah, for real.
Wait, what did she
Well,
just say?
you should know that.
Say that
I
again.
still don't even know how to do it.
You're going to learn it at the end of the chapter.
So now we just plug this into the
Okay,
quadratic
so
formula.
x is equal to negative b, so that would be positive 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 2 squared. Imagine if it were in parentheses, would that be a positive or negative 4? Positive 4 minus 4a c all over 2a, so 2 times 1. You can just say 2 if you want. Keep life simple.
I think I got it. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So then I'm going to simplify. So 2 plus or minus the square root. What goes under the square root? What number?
Times 1.
Whoa,
That'd
whoa.
be-
Oh, okay. Never mind. It's the denominator.
So it'd be 4 minus
Yeah, I was like,
4 times negative 1. So it'd be 4 plus 4, which is 8,
But
divided by 2. Now, the hardest part about this is not plugging in the numbers. I know you can do that. The hardest part is simplifying. So let me take you through some steps of how I want you to simplify. I want you to put the 2 underneath. So I want you to rewrite this. And if it helps from the very beginning, you could do so. So I've got 2 over 2 plus square root of 8 over 2. I have split it up. Remember when we did that proof, it was split up? And it makes it easier to simplify when it's split up.
Wait, is it still plus or minus?
Yes. Sorry.
You're good.
Wait, so you divide the whole thing by 2?
Yeah, the whole thing is divided by 2, but it's the same as splitting them up and putting them both under 2.
You always got
Okay,
it wrong.
so
We
it's
Like in
started
8th
this.
grade, I didn't divide the first part by 2. I only divided the
So
second
what I
part
want
by
you to do is simplify. Simplify and get a final answer that maybe looks something more similar to how we completed the square.
Okay.
our answers.
David? Oh, okay, well that's pretty simple.
So the 2 over 2 gets reduced to a what?
1.
1 plus
Is
or
this-
minus.
Is this all x equals this right now?
Yes. What does this
1.
get reduced to? The square root of 8.
Is it 2 on the outside of 2?
Square root of 2.
Good. Over 2. And then what happens? That cancels. So 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. And we're done.
Okay, everyone. This is how rockets are launched. Now we're going to find the quadratic formula. The formula is coming out of here.
All right. So let's get B set up, and then I'll let you do the formula. Let's get B set up. So we've got 3x
I
squared
used my B space. That's okay. I understand.
minus 8x
No, not yet.
plus 4 equals 0.
Yeah, you always say that.
Okay, try the quadratic formula, start to finish.
What's going on?
You're right. I cannot add people.
Our math teacher.
Yeah.
There we go. Plus 4. I was just testing you, and you all passed. I'm so proud. When you do the quadratic formula, you do not have to divide by 3. Your A term can be not 1. It's only when you are completing the square. However, if you do divide by 3, you will multiply fractions, but it makes simplifying easier. So you can or you cannot, but it is not necessary. Okay, what I normally do, like whenever I don't know where to start. So for me, it doesn't come natural to divide it by 16. So I'm going to divide it by 4. So when I divide 96 by 4, I got 24. 24 can then be divided again by 4 and 6. So I have 2 perfect squares inside that.
And then you pull it
So
up,
that's
and
why I
then you
have
leave
this
6
4
in
times
there.
4 times 6.
Subtract 6.
This comes out, and this comes out.
Oh, wait, then you
Which
multiply
makes it
this
4 on the
to
outside
Yeah.
of 6. Okay.
And then divided by 6. And so this reduces to be 2 over 3. So the final answer would be x equals 2 plus or minus 2 root 6 over 3. Y'all got it?
Yes.
Yay! That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's try one more. You may get a negative inside of a square root, but I want you to keep going and just keep it there, and then we'll talk about what it means.
I'm smiling at math.
This is the last question we are doing today. So we stop when we get to a square root of a negative number and say no real solutions because we have not learned about imaginary yet. No, you have to write it all.
So imagine.
Wait, so as soon as
So
we
once
see
we
negative
learn
16,
about imaginary numbers, we'll take this a step further, and there will be an I in our answer.
Wait.
Are imaginary numbers always the
No,
same?
next class.
So as soon as we see a square root over something that can't be
No
square
real
rooted,
solution.
we just stop the writing right there.
No real
Just write-
solution.
Numbers always the same.
No.
Wait, like after.
What is an imaginary number?
You'll have to wait and find out.